My name is Shir. I'm a parent of Edina, lived in Edina for many years, and I'm also kind of the executive director of this organization called Somali Parent of Minnesota. Before we start our program, I'd just like to call Brother Kamal to just kind of give us one or two of word of wisdom, inshallah. Welcome.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Good afternoon to everybody. I think we are using the old Somali culture of asking guys to speak when we have nothing to say. To women who can educate us and tell us a lot. So I'm a little bit embarrassed to address this group of Muslim mothers who know more than me about education and about everything. So I think that's one of the cultural things we need to change, inshallah. Brother Sharmarke is the founder of the organization. He's very modest to say he's the real executive director and the founder, and our community leader who is organizing and bringing the community and the school system together. I want to congratulate him for that and thank him. He asked me to say, traditionally when we open a Somali meeting, we usually open with few verses from the Quran to bless the gathering. So I believe everybody knows more about the Quran than me, except for the non-Muslims. So I'll just say a few things for the benefit of the non-Muslim members of the meeting. Since we are here to discuss education, I think it's relevant to quote the first verse of the Quran that was revealed to Prophet Muhammad, which was Iqra in Arabic, meaning read. Allah didn't say pray, He didn't say give charity. He will say that later. But the first thing He said to the Prophet, who was illiterate, adult at that time, he didn't know how to write his name. But the first command God gave him was to read. So if you are a teacher who is teaching how to read, I think you are teaching Islam. Because that's the first commandment in Islam is to read. So when we send our children to school for you to teach them how to read, you maybe do your job, but to me, you're also teaching Islam. Because if you don't understand, knowledge is very important in our religion. So I think the Muslims know that better than me, but for those who are not from the Muslim tradition, I want you to know that our first commandment, I know the Christians, they have 10 commandments. I think Islam have more than that, but number one is to read. So if we don't study or send our children to school, or how do we read? We can't. It means if you cannot read, you can't be a real Muslim. Because you're missing the first commandment, and you'll probably not understand the second and the third and the other ones coming. Because the first one is the most important one. I want to thank those who teach, and also want to thank the mothers who are the number one teachers of our kids. I want to thank them. And also want to thank the young students who are here, mostly boys, for showing up for their future. This is about their future. We are here for you, not for ourselves. Some of us are too old to go to school now, but we are here because we care about your future. We want you to finish school, go to college. We don't want you to get in trouble, so we are here to talk about your future. And we are glad you are here to hear and know that your community really values you and values your future.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So a brief background about why we decided to form a kind of an organization that the whole idea is to bring us together. So I'm a Edina resident for many years. My first child just graduated about a year and a half ago. And then I have a daughter who is now in 10th grade. Then I have a son who is in a middle school. And then my last daughter is in an elementary school. So what we decided is, since we are still in Edina, we've been living in Edina, then how comes that anytime there's a meeting called, there's a PTO, the stuff like that, none of the parents that look like us are in the meeting. They don't show up, they are not there. So prior to COVID, a few of us said, you know what, Edina School as an institution is the best school if you ask a lot of families why they want to come to Edina, they say the school is the good. So now that we have the opportunity, we have the good school that is welcoming us, then where are our kids? Why are they not taking advantage of the system that is built? So we, few of us came together and said, you know what? First of all, we as a parent, we need to get organized. And maybe when we get organized, then the kid will be organized. So that's why we formed this organization. So I had an experience in nonprofit, and that's why, apart from this, I work for another community-based organization, so I'm kind of familiar with this stuff. So I said, you know what? Let's form this thing and see where it goes. So a lot of mothers who are in here were brainchild behind this. They were backbone, supported me the much they can, and alhamdulillah, that's why we are at least having a gathering today. So today I've invited Erica, who is the board chairperson of the Edina School District. She's the lady here. So if any staff, when we say the Edina School District, that's the lady behind it. She has a team of people who work with her, you know. She had a team of people who work with her. And with our support, we're gonna make Edina even more better, more beautiful, more other stuff. So let me just talk to you about some small PowerPoint on what I'm doing. Next is, so our vision is to see a world where children of Somali heritage excel in school and in life. That's a long-term vision. And that's what we encompass, that one day we're gonna see everybody who has a Somali heritage excel in education and in life. We had an opportunity to come to this country. They say this is the country of opportunity. And unfortunately, some benefiting, some are not benefiting. Some are left out, some are not left out. So we are all in the struggle together. So that's why we say, let's set a higher bar, see whether we can accomplish. So that's our vision. And now this is the mission that we decided to, when we are forming this organization. One of the mission is to increase graduation rate. We asked this question ourselves. Although I don't have the data to support how many students graduated from Edina School from when the first Somali kids went to that school up to now, I don't know. But inshallah, with time, we're going to get that. So if, let's say, they're close to, for example, I'm just saying 1,000 students throughout, and how many of those have graduated? And how many are now going there? That's stuff we want to increase. So if we get that data, we're going to see that we need a lot of improvement in this area, because there's a lot of parents who, the kids are not graduating. And so Edina being the best school, give us the opportunity, and our kids are not graduating is something that we need to look. So that's what we decided to do. Secondly is to act as a bridge between the school district and the community. There's a lot of complaints about maybe our kids misbehaving here and there. There's a language issue, the stuff like that. So we say, how can we as a parent be the bridge? I'm sorry. So how can we as a parent bridge that gap? You know, that's why we said we act as a bridge between the school district and the community. The other thing is to promote partnership and student well-being. This is very important, because if we don't work together as a team, then we're not going to reach nowhere. So the partnership that we're looking for is bring the superintendent on the table, bring the people who are making the decisions on the table, and then we decide this is what we want, can they listen to us? Teach our students how to be better advocates for themselves. This is something that I really, really want to emphasize, because a lot of our students have the fear to express themselves. It might be having a small talk with the teacher. You know, might be an extra assignment they're looking for. They can ask for that extra assignment. They can do it. Are they scared of the teachers? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But sometimes we have to encourage these kids to say, yes, you have to advocate for yourself. Because if you don't do that, nobody advocates for yourself. Finally, is to promote parent involvement. So there's if you go to PTOs in all the 6 elementary schools here, you'll see there are maybe 1 or 2 parents. So we want to involve a lot of parents to be at least in the PTO, because they're gonna learn a lot about what's done in the school. So the accomplished so far is, luckily, because of the investment that we have done, we have at least 1 or 2 parents who already are PTO in different schools. Just because by us coming together and say, hey, you can be a PTO, you can be a PTO, you can be a PTO. We've been invited to participate in Edina one. Few months ago, the city of Edina and the Edina School District came together. It's a community-based organization where people from different faiths come together and they talk about one Edina. We have participated in cultural heritage. This is where the schools have cultural days and stuff like that. And sometimes we never used to participate that. You know, my daughter will send something, say we have a carnival, we have this, and the parents are not there. So, but the last 2 years, I'm seeing there's a lot of parents. I'm going to show you the picture to show that at least by us talking together, we see a lot of us in those parent meetings organization. And the other thing I'm happy is the Somali Student Association. Edina, as long where they never had a Somali Student Association. There was a lot of other clubs, but as a club, there were none. And so we asked ourselves, well, how? So we talked to Mike and with Mike Pataski, who is the assistant principal, and also we talked to Abrik Adil, who is the school liaison. We say, how can we encourage our students to form a club? And today that club is working, and the whole idea is to encourage the students so that when there's a new come, they can at least see somebody's helping them move from point A to point B. The other thing is about the district. You know, the district have invited us. We participated in very many committee stuff here and there. There was something to do with the racial. There's something different that we participated in those meetings. Because if we don't participate in those meetings, then the decision that it made affect us, and we didn't even participate. So they allow us to participate. Finally, is volunteering. You know, there's a lot of the teachers might need volunteer in the classrooms. Dr. Anne Marie.
No, I'm kidding. Okay, as Shamarke said, my name is Anne Marie Leland, and I am a doctor now. I was able to get my dissertation all done right before the pandemic in 2020. Yay! So that happens. Good. One of the things that I'm just going to say right off the bat is I feel right at home. I am so happy and so honored to be here with all of you today. It is something that after 10 years of being in the Faribault community and of the enrollment there of 3,800 students, 27% of the enrollment in Faribault was our Somali families and Somali children. So it was just wonderful. Yeah, so I'm just thrilled to be back in the community and getting to talk to all of you. So as Edina Public Schools Community Education and Strategic Partnerships Director, I'm kind of taking that hat off right now, and I'm putting a different hat on. So I'm still doing some of this work in my role, and I'd like to go deeper in how to engage school, family, and community and build that engagement with parents and our families that maybe aren't at the table right now. Need to do a level playing field, right, as they say. So I wanted to just walk through some of my slides that I presented when I was getting my doctorate, because the case study that I did, as you can see on the screen, was of Somali parent school engagement within Faribault Public Schools. So it was through interviews, and it was through 10 years of building very solid relationships with all families, but particularly there was a reason why Faribault Public Schools needed to build better relationships with our Somali families. And that was because we saw such disparity and such a gap in terms of graduation and attendance. Exactly what Shamarke was talking about earlier. Exactly that. It was so important to get our students to graduate on time and have the exact same opportunities as all of the other students. So in Edina Public Schools, our vision is for each and every student to discover their possibilities and thrive, and we mean that in Edina. And so I think through what Shamarke is doing within this organization is really building that structure, and I'm so happy to participate within the conversation and how to structure and build these frameworks together. So just in terms of those 10 years in Faribault, was able to visit the Islamic Center many, many times. I got to know the elders. I was able to, with the superintendent at the time, really start building very, very close connections to our Somali families and to our students. And as I said before, it was really about achieving equity and social justice and advocating for each student to thrive in that particular in that particular community. One of the things that this research did and allowed me to do was bring together 12, and they're not all there, you know, some some didn't make it to our graduation class that day. But to 8 weeks, every week we met as a team for 2 hours, and these parents built what they wanted to find out in terms of how to navigate, how to understand, how to really leverage their expertise as a parent to how to make sure that their child was succeeding as much as possible. So they built the curriculum, they built the training that we went through for 8 weeks. I listened very carefully. We worked as a team. I worked with someone that lives in Shoreview. She has been a consultant within the early childhood area for many years, Mariam Muhammad. And then I worked with a community-based organization, and that individual's name is Abdullah Sharif Harid, so known as Sharif. He has the Somali Community Resettlement Services. I believe I know he has a center here in Minneapolis, but one in Rochester and also in Faribault. And he and I worked very, very closely together on some things. So I'm gonna just go through these really quickly because it's the end that I want to get to. But through the 10 years and through lots of conversation and the culmination of the work that we did together, we wanted to concentrate on some gaps. Some of the gaps that we really focused on, sorry about that, that we really focused on were the things that, again, I'll just repeat, attendance. Because when we know a child attends school regularly, that leads to very good success, right? So they have to be there every day. They have to be there on time. So one of the things that the parents and I discussed, and along with in Faribault, there was a very significant population of our Latinx families as well. So bringing everyone together and decided to build a program called Realizing Individual Student Experience. And that was something where we brought in people to sit and live and work within the high school. And all those people were focused on, and they were very reflective of our student population. So we had Latinas and Somali individuals working within that space, and they were very focused on attendance, and they would follow a student, not follow them around physically, like walk behind them or anything, but they would make sure they were case managing that student and that individual and being in contact and seeing what was going on social emotionally with that student, what was going on with the family in that moment, contacting the parent, actually home visiting and going to the home and having conversations with the families to see what was going on, to make sure we could get that student back and engaged. And the engagement part was also something that we talked about. And because of some of the things we did within this case study and then the work that we had done over a decade, was to make sure that when we had students, because Faribault's Somali population may be a bit different from the Somali population that we have in this room. There's a lot of people new to Minnesota. Many people were not fluent in English. So there was some very significant barriers. What we discovered was it didn't matter if the level of education or the level of English. Parents are parents, and they want their children to get A's, and they want them to go to college, and they want them to get good jobs. Doesn't matter, right? I mean, who wants that for their child? Everybody, yeah. Students, do you want that for yourselves? Yeah. Excellent. Okay, I'm glad you said that. So the main goal of this work was to figure out, okay, so what are the gaps at the high school? We have all these advanced placement classes, and we have some college credit bearing classes, while we were having students take non-credit bearing classes in math, in reading, and they were not graduating on time because they were so behind in credits. Do we know what credit, we do understand the credit situation, right? Yeah, so we're always looking at credits. and we need those credits to count and mean something. So we started building better programming in the high school to make sure that students were supported and not shut out of AP classes or college in the school's classroom or any of the classes that they wanted to enroll in, right? I mean, it's a student choice and it's a parent choice. And that's, again, what we did as a district and what we did as, in my position there, to just really advocate and make sure we were building the resources necessary to put co-teachers in the room where students could rely both on someone who was licensed in multilingual programming, right? So they knew the strategies to pull out of students in terms of getting them to build their literacy and numeracy, but also getting the content needed in that social studies class, in that physics class, in whatever class they were taking. So it was a really big thing that these parents accomplished together, accomplished with us. I'm just putting this model up there. I think it speaks beautifully to what Shamarke was talking about in terms of putting the child at the center. And there's all sorts of research I used. Dr. Joyce Epstein was the biggest person that I had looked at in terms of research, and her framework all falls within, again, exactly what Shamarke said. Involving parents in parenting, communicating, volunteering, learning at home, decision-making, and collaborating with the community. And I could go on and on, but I see by the time on my slides, I've already gone almost 20 minutes, so I'm gonna stop. It was just a terrific learning opportunity. It was a journey that we developed together with parents. And as we are hiring a director of diversity, equity, and multilingual programming, that's where I see, as of July and next year, where we can really take off and build these bridges. Okay, thanks.
I remember this meeting today. So that's why you see those young ladies who in the Edina High School, and they're gonna come talk to you about robotic class. So please, Ellen, can you just come to me? Yeah.
So that was my mom that he was talking about that he met at that meeting. My name's Elena. Let's introduce ourselves.
I'm Venna. I'm Nora. And I'm Kaylee. We're all part of the Edina High School team, the Green Machine, Team 1816. And we're all juniors right now. And yes, that we are on part of the high school team, but that doesn't mean that it's not for like everybody. There's this thing called FIRST, which means first for the inspiration and
in science and technology.
Yeah, something like that. It's essentially, it's a really long acronym, but essentially there's several types of programs that people can enroll in from kindergarten to 12th grade, all about robotics, and there's a lot of things that go into these robotics teams too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you would think like robotics, you're learning to like build and program the robot, and that is very true, and you do learn a lot of technical skills, and like you learn how to kind of work as a team, and in like, I'd like to say like our team kind of works like in a professional way. So like, you know, we have different sub teams, like you can learn programming or learn to build the robot, or you can work on outreach and things like that. But it really helps students like kind of like grow into themselves and become better leaders and work as a team. So it's also kind of about growing yourself and like those life skills, I guess, too.
I guess one thing about FIRST as a program is that it like encapsulates basically kindergarten through 12th grade with basically 3 levels. So there's FIRST Lego League, which has Explore and Challenge and one other one, which we're forgetting, but it's for younger kids, mostly elementary school age, where you work with robots that are Lego built, and they're generally this big, and it's on some small tables, and there's like competitions. There's also, if you look in the back later, or you can come talk to us later, but there's a small robot over there that's built out of Legos that when I was on an FLL team, I built when I was in like 5th grade with my friends, and then also half of it is a project that you choose based on the theme that year. If like, it was like our theme was space, and space exploration. So we did one about a dog that'll accompany astronauts in space so they won't feel lonely or something like that. So we kind of just like, you make a project, you present to judges. So it's about really like kind of like all the robotic stuff, for jobs, jobs later on. If you want to be in like an engineer or you want to be in coding, it's really important to like start early and get those skills early and do as much as you can, but also just the extra stuff about themes and all that. And then the next one in that set of 3 things is FTC, which is First Tech Challenge, which is mostly middle schoolers. And Edina has 6 FTC teams, right? 6 FTC teams. So they work on bigger robots. Now you're using like more advanced code, you're using more advanced mechanics and building, and it's a step up, but it's not fully the next step up, which is the highest step up, which is FRC, which is what we are, which is really like big robots, probably this high off the ground, that work on full fields and challenges. So it's really like, it's a big line of progression that starts from an elementary age, which in these like the FLL and FTC, there's also a lot of parent mentoring involved, because basically in FLL it's all parents. It's there's usually no professional like mentors as we have it on our more like higher up team. It's all parents who are who have that experience, who can help their kids, and it's really like that community-based kind of organization for that.
So if you guys have any more questions about FTC, FLL, FRC, any of like the levels, we can connect you with the FTC coordinator. We can also connect you with FRC things. But yeah, thank you guys so much. If you guys have any questions, we can ask them later.
Mr. BR, can you come please? So for those people who don't know, this guy is a comedian. He's a talk show host. He acts some drama in the Somali community, a well-known figure. He also has, he's an artist. He likes to draw stuff like that, kind of fine art stuff. So I really like his work, and I'm sure maybe the reason why I brought him here is just for him to kind of go over a rundown of what he does, and maybe we can use his knowledge stuff like that down the line, because I think if the school will able to start a Somali immersion kind of classes, whatever he's doing is very, very, very important. So this just to give him an open field where he can talk about that. So.
Assalamu alaikum. Dad badana arkaad gabar qurux badana ay u tiri BRO kamidi ma caawno sheegi. Horta iskiin baro Soomaaliyan ku hadlaa. Asaan rabay inuu turjumaano. Ani waxaan ahay CEO-gii The Fine Art oo Soomaali ay ku faanto. 18 sano ay u qaadatay. Heroeski, afki, mirabeereedki. Marka page-kaas ka helaysiin for free. The Fine Art 252. Ilmiina bara. Waa mahadsantihiin. qof tagay ma jiro museumka qaranka Soomaaliya xamar. Saan bari? Okay. Everywhere. Where's your heroes? Dadkii dhiig u soo daaday dalka. Nobody knows. Saaxiiba waxaan lahay madaxda sarsare dhan saaxiibaan lahay. Marka I don't know. I try my best. Marka wax badan aan ka baran doontiin. هذا السؤال كان الحاضر أنا سؤال ويلك علم كسمي ماشي مع عوالي الليبان وهو علم كتاجين يسي ماركا إبراهيم لينكولن مريكان كان millions of dollars فريم كليا million of dollars هذه هي هذا أو.
So introduction. This guy, his name is Abdul Hakim. We call him BR. That's his stage name. He's a comedian, an actor. He has the whole 9 years. You can call him everywhere, you know. So he's popular in the Somali TV station and stuff like that. He has a talk show that he talks and stuff like that. So anyway, he's also an artist. And so normally what he designs is, an example is something like that. This is geometry. You know, what do you say? Question mark in Somali. What do you say plus in Somali? Now if I ask you what is plus in Somali, what is it? Give me, what is plus? Plus. It's kuddar. Okay, what is times? Kudufu. Okay. What is divide? وقيبي. You see, some of this, even me, I don't know. You know, I'm learning stuff like that. You know. What about the question mark? Very good. You okay? Some stuff we don't know. What about this one? Kan mahala. Mana I don't know.
kuwaan waxaa ku helaysay free way
Aha.
xarfaha laba laabma geometrigii maalmihii bilooyinkii asaga kaliya 6 sano ay u qaatay kan waa midabada
خلاص.
asal dhexdhexaad kuwa iska dhala kuwa isu habboon free page-kaa gelaysiin taariikhda sacuudi arabiya waxeeda kuwait ma qaadato waa cayb qof walba taariikh uu leeyahay dunida islaamka marka teeni taasaan u sameeyey misaan free waa iyadana kan kaligay ma sameynin artistayaasha soomaaliya u qaalisanaa ila sameeyeen 20 kaba waa shibanihii iyo shaqaladii marka wixii kala go'ay
So literally, this stuff will be here. You're gonna walk around, see, just like animals. What is, for example, what is a zebra in Somali? Zebra. What is called in Somali? Huh? Zebra? No, zebra. Zebra is English. In Somali, damer. Okay. What about damer faro? Okay. So anyway, this stuff that here. So he's doing this stuff and okay. Push.
He kind of said a website,
Yeah.
and nobody translated in English.
Uh-huh.
So he has a website that is free.
Okay.
These guys can go through and read it from his
Yeah. Yeah. So
website ma page way
page. Yeah.
And he said the page, it's right
Yeah.
there.
fine
on
art
his bar.
Yeah.
waa free way
Yeah. Okay, so now let me challenge you. So if you get this correctly, you're gonna get some stuff, okay? So you have to raise your hand, okay? So what is this called in Somali? Bar. Very good. Okay, you got it. Okay. Okay, and I like the young ones, so let's challenge them, okay?
There are two dialects.
Okay.
Who knows it in Wahoi? It's true.
Yeah.
We have two dialects.
Yeah.
Or many dialects.
Okay.
So who knows it in
Manisha, he got it? He got it, okay. Okay, now this one, please. The young guys, who knows it in Somali? Huh? Rakhi. Okay, Rakhi. Okay. We're gonna make it very interesting. Hammer, okay, Hammer is what? Hammer is, Hammer wa maqli na Rakhi na wa maqli. So who say Hammer? Me. Okay. Okay, because of time, I'm just gonna go. Okay, what about this one? It's pear. Huh? Mala niyo, ade. Right? Hold on. She said this does not grow in Somalia. It's in English, pear.
saytuun
Pear.
saytuun
Zaytun in Somalia. Who get it? It's not zaytun. No. It's not zaytun.
maaha saytuun kan gaar
It's not zaytun. I have a cheat sheet. Hold on again.
taas ma hayna nooma baxa runteed waa
Wahaya.
nooma baxa
Okay, we'll come back to it. I have an answer for that one. Okay. Okay, what about that one?
bajaad
معاشك حجر اوكي هاي كنا تمر معها ها ماي سقط ايه اوكي كنا محاول Huh? Oh, okay, I have some t-shirt. Good as I see now. Okay, I think the last one is this one. Kaswa here, sama. Okay, kan maxaa waay? Mushroom English waay. Huh? Bocor. Huh? Mushroom English waay niyo, Somali. Huh? Yes, that one. I have something for you here, inshallah. Anyway, thank you very much. So the whole idea is there's a lot of stuff that we need to learn. You know, all this stuff has English language. So anyway, so because of time, I'm sure I'm very sorry. Let me welcome our next speaker.
Thank you, Sharmarke. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello, everyone. And thank you, Sharmarke, for organizing this event and bringing the community together. As Sharmarke has mentioned, my name is Habiba Ibrahim. I don't know if I should say this, but I'm still pretty new to Minnesota and new to the community. This is my second academic year, not still 2 years, but about a year and a half in the state of Minnesota and in the Twin Cities. I've been in Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, primarily for the past 16, 17 years. It felt like home, but at one point, you know, when you have kids and they're growing up, they need a community. And fortunately or unfortunately, the Twin Cities provide that community. And I'm glad to be part of this community that provides not only, you know, academic excellence, but a community for our youth to grow up, both academically, culturally, and also spiritually. And this conference here, coming together as parents of Somali community, it means a lot, because it doesn't bring only the challenges that we are facing. A lot of us, we're already aware of those challenges, but what are our next steps? How can we support them? A lot of them are falling through the cracks. What can we bring together? So Sharmarke asked me a little bit to talk about what are some strategies that we can use to support our parents to be more involved within our school systems. And what I have done is most of the strategies that I will share, they are not very specific to Somali, but across the board for immigrants. We are part of the immigrant community. Research on Somalis is still very few to find. I'm glad we had our first speaker here, was Dr. Leland, who had shared some. I primarily do my research on immigrants and communities, but I do focus broadly on African immigrants, not specifically in Somalis. Maybe I'll have more opportunities now that I'm here to focus more on Somali-specific research on the Somali communities. So I'll begin with a little bit of background information. And when we say, how do we engage Somali parents or immigrants' parents, why do we even focus on them? So just background information, the US demographic is really changing. And when we look at the population of the immigrants or the foreign-born population, it's one of the fastest segment of the population of the United States that's growing. By the end of 2020, about 15% of the US population were immigrants or individuals who were born outside the United States. But when we look at immigrants' household, it actually goes to about 26%. Because a lot of us, we have children who were born here. They're not foreign born, but at least they have one parent who was born outside the United States. So 26%, and it's still the fastest growing segment of the population. When we look at those who are within the K-12, children who are under 18, about 1 in 4 US children who are under 18 comes from an immigrant household. So that is quite a sizable and significant population that our schools, our districts have to consider how are we going to support them, what strategies are there. And when we are looking at these schools, both the other two speakers have mentioned this. A lot of this will be what you've already heard, but it's not just the school. It is the school, the home, and the community. And when we look at the ELL or the English language learners, generally who are those who are identified as English language learner is any child who comes from a household where English is not the dominant language. They may not be receiving ELL services because they were born here and they do not need, but primarily when they're enrolling in the school, we have to give that information. At least they have to be tested to see do they need those services or not. And sometimes there is some stereotype in our community that when a child is categorized as ELL, that is something bad. Not really, because these are extra support services that they need if they qualify for. So I will urge the parents to, well, the testing is required, but if your child needs ELL services, that is extra support. That will just put them ahead of where they are than when they're just in the general education classroom. So while 1 in 4 kids, 4 children under the age of 18 are coming from child of immigrant, it doesn't directly translate that they all need ELL services. A lot of them they actually don't need because they are US born. And when we look at within Minnesota, what happened? Mm-hmm. Within Minnesota, actually, the ELL population is even larger than that. Minneapolis public schools, given that I'm new, I don't have a lot of data that is very specific to Minnesota, but a few things that I pulled is within Minneapolis public schools, there are 100 different languages spoken, families who are attending there. I am assuming Edina being part of the larger metro area, it's pretty similar. So that is some of the reasons why this population needs attention. And another reason is a lot of the families who are ELL population, they are either new to this country, maybe they have been here for the, let's say, to the most maybe in the past 2 to 3 decades, not even 3 decades yet. So we are still dealing with a lot of post-migration stresses that is spilling to the child within the school, their focus, and unless we attend to those household issues, we cannot just be supporting this child in a vacuum. I know a lot of what I will be sharing is geared more towards the school districts. At least we have the board here, but it would have been good if we would have had people who are within the school buildings also. And so as you can see here, there is the resettlement issues, which a lot of us here might have already passed over. But when we come to the acculturation issues, family relationships, intergenerational conflict is huge in our community. Kids who are born here, this is all where they know, and then we as parents, of course, we have a whole different set of expectations. This is how I grew up back home, and this is what I expect from you. It doesn't happen, unfortunately. So what do we need to adjust so that we can support our kids so that they don't lose their roots, but also be successful in the country where they are, in the academic systems where they are. A lot of adults, especially elder adults, elder parents, they're also dealing with issues of loneliness, alienation, discrimination. So this is a population within the school system that should be given an extra support so that we would, a lot of the issues that Sharmarke has mentioned earlier, it's because of doubling up of what we have here and not having those support. And why parent engagement specifically? Why do we want to bring parents home? What we are used to back home is the child goes to school, it is the school's business. The parents' work is we provide the basic needs. We go and look for jobs, our livelihoods, and we make sure there is at least food on the table by the time they come back. And it's the teachers who deals with it. We are now in a different setup, in a different cultural setup, different education system where we are expected to be there to communicate. And what research has shown is when we are engaged, we as parents are engaged, that it improves the outcome for the child, not only academically, but also behavior issues. When your child knows my mom will be here tonight, today at the school, they will be in their best behavior. They don't want to see that. And more so when the dads are there. I know earlier it has been mentioned, the absentee dads, but that is a really key area, especially for our young boys, for the dads to show up in school. And for the boys to know that, yeah, my dad will be here, unannounced, I need to be at my best. And they will focus on their student, on their academics. So parent engagement is not really an option. We have to be engaged So how are we going to do there? How will we get there? So I'll share with you a few evidence-informed, research-informed strategies. Again, these are not specific to Somali parents, but across immigrant parents and sometimes non-immigrant parents too, who come from struggling areas. So one of the things, especially for school districts, is build communication system, consistent and effective communication system. And the communication system should not just be when there is an issue to be reported, when there is a problem that the teacher has to call home or the principal has to call a parent, but especially for immigrant parents, communication system that is there, that you can count on, that we have a way to reach our parents, to hear them, to provide a space for them and to meet them. And this has actually come up during COVID-19, when the school buildings were locked and everyone was at home. The loopholes within school districts was there was really poor communication system. What are some of the ways that you get communication from your child's school? What is the most common way? Email. Mm-hmm. Phone calls. Facebook pages. So those are all effective methods. But what research evidence shows is the best method is actually phone calls, and not only phone calls, but phone calls in the language of the parents. A lot of schools, they have paraprofessionals, parent supports. So those automated phone calls that are going out, if they are going out in the language of the home, it is one of the best methods to bring the parents to the school. When we said and sent a blast email, how many of those parents will read the emails? Maybe a third. And sometimes they get saturated, oh, it's another email from the district, and it just goes down the list. But when the phone rings and there is either a message or a call, an automated message even, that is in Somali, the mom will listen to, the dad will listen to. They will not ask the child, what is this saying? And when we use the child as an interpreter, it brings in a lot of conflict, intergenerational conflict, where the child says, I will just share what I want to because maybe they're talking about me. So using those phone calls, sending those messages in Somali is a great way to actually improve communication. And another thing is, I need to keep on touching this, I think. Another thing is creating a space within the schools where parents can actually just pop in their paraprofessionals and support without even an appointment, that they can just speak to someone. They are concerned about their child's behavior, they're concerned about their child's performance. Let them just know that there is this space, and there is always a paraprofessional, a teacher, someone who is available that they can share with and show up. That way they feel that I am part of this community. And earlier on, again, Sharmarke mentioned the children are not able to advocate for themselves. Even the parents. A lot of the parents are not able to advocate for themselves because they haven't been provided with that space where they can just feel that I can walk in and see what's going on within the school. What is
So please help me welcome Erica Allenbach.
Again, I'm Erica Allenberg. I'm a board member, but I'm sure, like Dan would say as well, most importantly, we're parents. I have 3 kids, one that graduated, one that's graduating this year, so I won't cry too much. But and then one that's a freshman at the high school. And then Dan also has 3 kiddos, 2 that have graduated and 1 that is graduating this year. So he'll be an empty nester soon. But so we are board members, but like as was alluded earlier, we're parents, and we want the same thing for our kids that you guys want for your kids, which is achievement and our kids to be happy and be successful in life. And that's the lens that we view our decisions through. So we're here to talk to you about 4 different things. One is really, what does our school board do? The importance of parent engagement, which has been touched on a lot, so we might run through those quickly. How can parents and the school district partner together, and key takeaways. And I'd really love for this to be informal and ask questions. So if you see something I said or something Dan said and it keys a question, feel free to interrupt us. This is I'm thrilled to be here, and I want you guys to get as much out of this as possible, so you don't have to wait till the end. I want to provide as much information as possible for you guys, so interrupt, raise your hand, whatever that works best. So first I'm going to tell you a little bit about the school board. I'm going to try to keep you guys awake while I'm telling you about the school board because it's a bit of a dry topic, but basically, it's made up of 7 elected officials, and we govern everything related to the school in Edina. So we have the city that does the city, we have the school that does the school, but it's only public school. We have some private schools in Edina that we have nothing to do with. And then our superintendent sits on the school board, but she's a non-voting member. Every 2 years, basically half the board is re-elected or elected. It's 7, so it's 4 and 3. We do have a board election coming up this fall, where 3 board members will be up for election. And so if anyone here is interested in running for board, you do have to be a resident of Edina. And so I'm gonna put my a feeler out for Shamarke back there, who I think would be an excellent candidate. So this is our current board right now. So myself, there's Dan, and then we have these other board members right here. I won't go through all of them. But this is what I wanted to get to, which was really explain the structure of our district and who does what. So at the very top, you have the school board that basically governs everything that goes on in the school. Under that, you have the superintendent, and then you have 2 sort of prongs there. You have our district administration on the left-hand side and our school administrators on the right side. Under our district administration, there's everything from finance to our bus garage to human resources who hire everyone. On the right, you have our school administrators who run our schools, which is closest to parents, obviously, and that's where under our school administrators, which are principals, then you have our educators. All of this is done to support our students. No one piece of this can be successful without another piece. So our bus drivers, our paras, our educators, school board, none of us is one more important than the other because it all functions to educate our students. When I say the school board governs the district, what does that mean? It really means that we establish the policies of the district, which are basically the laws of the school district. So everything from dress code to disciplinary policies to finance, how much money does the district have to have in their savings account, hiring policies, all of those policies, the district, we establish and vote on those. We hire and manage the relationship with the superintendent, and we establish the strategic direction of the district, which I'll get into in a little while, but that's our strategic plan. On the other side of that, the superintendent's job is to actually implement all of that. So the day-to-day operations, we might say our dress code needs to, last time, I don't even remember, but whatever the dress code says, then our superintendent and our principals actually have to implement it. So as a board, we're not involved in the day-to-day operations of anything that goes on in the school. And I won't get into all of this, I promise. However, I wanted to give some examples of how this actually works in theory because it's a little confusing, but just a couple of examples for like a student academic issue. What on earth does the board do with a particular student? Really nothing. And I think that surprises people, but an individual student issue, a teacher, the principal, that's really where those issues should be resolved. If they're not resolved at that level, then that's where they go to district administration. But the board really is only involved in creating policies about what grades are, like what, you have to get a 93 to a 100 to get an A. Below that is an A minus, which really makes my kids angry. But that's where the board gets involved. It's only if a parent thinks a policy has been violated that the board gets involved, or in like worst case scenario, if there's a legal matter or something like that, that's where the board gets involved. So I'm hopefully trying to explain like some of the different levels in the district. And then another example would be curriculum. So an example right now is we're working on a language arts curriculum for our middle school and high school students. So what the board does is we basically approve what we want the curriculum to look like in terms of almost like values and scope of the curriculum. So an example will say, we do not want our curriculum to provide inequities for our students. We want to have our curriculum to have materials that are responsive for all cultures. So we have broad parameters that will give the administration, and then it's their responsibility to find the curriculum, to make recommendations to us, to recommend the classes. We then approve their recommendation, and then our teachers will actually decide what are the books, what am I teaching for these 6 weeks, when are the tests coming. So it's a lot of different levels. And the reason that I'm going over this in such granularity is because sometimes it's confusing if there is an issue, who do you talk to in this gigantic system? And the other reason is that when we talk about parent-school engagement, there's a lot of different ways to get engaged on all these different levels, and a lot depends on what you might be interested in doing, and where you think that you could play a role and be most influential. So I just wanted to make sure that there was understanding about how complex the system is, because it can be complex and daunting. And even after being on the board, this is my 6th year, I'm still learning new things every day. So are there questions about that? Because I know it's a little confusing. So I'm going to move into our strategic plan briefly. But our strategic plan, which I left some copies on the table for you guys, this basically is what guides the work that we do as a district right now. This was passed as a board and district in April of 2020, and I don't know if you guys remember what happened around spring of 2020, but we entered a global pandemic. And so we were so excited about our new strategic plan, and then guess what? COVID happened, and really no one cared about our strategic plan anymore. And so a lot of people didn't hear about it, but we came up with a new mission statement and vision statement for our district, and Anne Marie alluded to this earlier, but the vision statement for our district really resonates with me and is important to me, and it's for each and every student, and that was intentional language. It used to say every student, but I think that can be too easy to just bucket all of our students into every student. For each and every student to discover their possibilities and thrive. As a parent, I have 3 children. All 3 of them operate completely differently. All 3 of them have different academic needs. My son that's graduating right now has a lot of pretty severe learning challenges. It's been a hard road for him. My youngest student, it's pretty easy. She's not so easy at home, but she's pretty easy at school. And my oldest one was sort of in between. Each and every student needs to find their way to success in our school district, and that's something that I'm very passionate about. And then that's our mission and vision, and then within our strategic plan, we have 5 priority strategies. It's advance academic excellence and growth, ensure an equitable and inclusive school culture, foster positive learning environments and whole student support, develop leadership throughout the district, and engage parents, schools, and community. And under each of these, then, are multiple tactics for how we're going to get all of this done. And I want to call your attention to, you can probably see that multiple things we've talked about today fall under these priority strategies that we have. Engage parents, schools, and community. That's really what we're here talking about, is engaging parents, schools, and the community. We have an entire strategy dedicated to ensuring an equitable and inclusive school culture, and a few of our tactics under that I know are some questions that you've asked about, or Shamarke said that he thought there would be some questions about, which is hiring a more diverse staff. We have a whole tactic that we pulled out in 2020, knowing that our staff does not look like the population of our students. We know that, and we need to work on that, and that's why we actually have resources dedicated to that right now. So I wanted just to call out our strategic plan and some of the things that we're working on as a district. I'm gonna turn it over to Dan to talk about the next two sections, and then I'll wrap it up.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for inviting us to speak today. A little bit more about me. I've been around Edina. I was a Creek Valley graduate myself. I've been in the city for 40 years now. I graduated high school in 1990. Moved back here. I have 3 kids that have gone through the schools as well. My youngest is a senior this year. So I've been deeply involved with the school and the community for a long time. I would say that, just as we've covered a lot of the parent engagement and parent involvement with all the other speakers, so I just wanted to talk a little bit personally about where I see the district as and whatnot. My parents were first generation immigrants from Thailand. They came over in the 60s. I was born in Minneapolis. I was obviously my brother and I were the firstborns in the U.S. And so we had a little bit of that intergenerational conflict piece of it, of being the people that were raised in the U.S. compared to what was my parents' expectations and whatnot. They were very focused on education, and education was all they really cared about. The social aspect of it, the integrating in with the friends and neighbors and whatnot. They had their community like I see that this community has. That was just as important to them as it was being a professional work and having their kids succeed. It was all this big mixture of work that was kind of forming who we were as a people, and my parents as where we were. And so I think that although it's not the same experience that you have today and whatnot, there are a lot of parallels to what's going on in the school. When I was in school, Edina's racial kind of mix was probably about 10%. I would say that I graduated in a graduating class of 450 students. There was probably 45 students of color in the entire school, and teachers of color probably even less than that compared to today's percentages. I think today's percentage is about 6% of the teaching staff in the state of Minnesota. For Edina was probably, I remember having one teacher of color in my entire life, and it was at Creek Valley in 6th grade. So I feel that there's an important element to that has to be continuously worked upon, because there's a great opportunity for all of us to make that change within our community and within our schools and everything else. From the students all the way to the parents, we each play a role in that piece of it. And I really feel like one of the things that hit home was when you talked about advocating as a student for yourself. That's a real challenge for a lot of kids, because a lot of kids just want to fit in. They don't want to necessarily advocate or cause any kind of disruption or whatnot. And I think that ultimately what is really important is that you realize that as a community member, you represent yourself, but you also represent the greater community. And so the challenge of it is that as an immigrant family or people that are of color, you basically have to, as much as you want to be seen as you and the individual, you also have to know that there are elements of the community that you're carrying with you. And I think that's really important for the students to know, because I think that's really important for the parents, and the parents already know that, and I think they're trying to communicate that through to most of their kids. So I feel that anything we can do as a board is going to be driven by the students, it's going to be driven by the parents, and it's going to be driven by the communities. We've got a lot of things that we need to do to change Edina as a community in terms of making things better. And ultimately, I think the real challenge that we have as a board is, how do we engage with families better in the structures that we have, or how do we change the structures that we have so that we can solicit information and speak with people at a different place. Many of the things we do, and you probably see it in the elementary schools as much as you do anything else, is that the elementary schools, and all the other schools have set committees, times, different things where you meet on a normal basis that have been 50, 60 years old, progressing down the way. And without the way to interact with people, kind of what we were talking about in terms of how do you reach out to families, how do you connect with them. We have committees. Not everybody likes sitting on committees. I don't like sitting on committees all the time. And those are challenges, because I think there's a barrier to people getting onto committee work and volunteering. I think the Creek Valley Cultural Days are great things to say, that you can say, you meet other parents and other families around where you can talk a little bit more. That's a tremendous way to engage. I think that other opportunities to engage involve more formal structures, like addressing the board. Anybody can address the board at any board meeting for a 3-minute period where you can bring any concerns or compliments, concerns, whatever you want to talk about. You can do that with the board on a regular basis. You can also reach out through the liaison. You can also reach out through the superintendent. Again, Eric has laid out a little bit of what we address and what we deal with, but the reality is that for the most part, we wouldn't be doing our job if we weren't listening. And so ultimately, we are trying to find different ways to listen to the community, whether it's through student voice or parent voice. We want people to join. And so I'm going to fast forward a little bit here. Obviously, parental involvement, I think this is somewhat obvious to me, but I think it is, and obvious to most of you, as you talked about earlier, Shamarka, with the Quran being the first piece of being education and literacy and reading. All these pieces of it, we all want the same thing. And so the reality is that I think we are all in this together, but how we focus that and how we make it a focal point of the students' lives and whatnot, that's a shared experience for us. We need to make sure that our assessments that say that they are an English language learner or they need help and supports in this thing, we need to do that as a board. We need to authorize those types of tools so that people can all get the services they need at the right time and meet people where they're at. And so I think that's kind of our role in some of that, is to make sure that we don't create barriers artificially because of that. A little bit of parental engagement. District level advisory committees and school PTOs and board committees are all things that currently exist and pathways for you to engage with us. Some of the district level advisory committees, I think I have a slide here. More.
There we go.
All right, World's Best Workforce. It's a state-run committee or state-organized committee that basically talks about, sets goals for students and families and school districts about like educational targets and metrics. Special Education Advisory Committee, which is also known as SEEK, District Equity and Advisory Committee, Student Activity Advisory Committee, Go Green, Community Education Services, and Gifted Advisory Committees. They all have different levels of interaction from elementary school all the way to the high school. And so you have opportunities to be represented on those. How to get to those, how to get access to those committees, and how do you sign up for them? It's a great question. I would be able to answer it. I don't really know, to be honest with you. Like, I think the reality is that you have to seek out these opportunities. One of the things that I talk about a lot with people who ask about private school versus public school and what's the difference and those types of things is public school gives you all the opportunities in the world to succeed, AP classes all the way to clubs to all these different things. You have to go seek them out. And the challenge with it is that when there are barriers that exist, it's hard to seek out those things. It's easy to not seek them out. And so what we really need to do as a community and as a board is to really engage people on how to seek out those services. And we need you to help us drive that. It's not just an email, it's not just a phone call, it's everything else. We need your voice at the table to tell us this is the best way to reach the community. You as students need to say, hey, I'm really interested in doing robotics, but I've never heard about it. And by the time I'm a senior, I never knew about it. Or I want to go travel on one of the trips that the high school does in different foreign countries, or the band trip or whatever, but I never heard about it. So you need to carry that voice back to your parents, and your parents need to ask questions to us and listen in and see how we can engage in a better way. It's all opportunities to improve, and I think we have a lot of those opportunities throughout our
Can
group.
I speak to this really? Two really fast notes on here. One, the World's Best Workforce Committee. This is where we get pretty granular in the data to look at English language learners, to look at any disparities with any demographics within our school district, including kids that are in special education on free and reduced lunch. This has parents that sit on it. It has educators. It has board members. I sit on this committee. It has administrators that sit on this committee. But we get pretty granular and then come up with strategies to deal with the data that we're looking at. So this is a great committee if you're interested in the academic achievement of all students in our district. The District Equity Advisory Committee, it more, I would say, deals with cultural issues broadly, but then they also serve as a sounding board for district policies. So that would be if we want parental feedback on things. I keep bringing up the dress code because that's all, I swear, that is popping in my head today, so I apologize. But let's say we wanted feedback on dress code. And we wanted to make sure that we had multiple voices give us feedback on it. We would, our board policy committee would ask the district equity advisory committee to look at that policy and give us the feedback, and then they would bring it back up to us on the board policy committee. So those are two great ways to get involved at the district level. When I was a parent, I loved working with the kids. So I'll be honest, none of these interested me because I wanted to sit in the classroom and work with my kids. So that's where we wanted to let you know of some different types of ways that you could be involved. This is very much more at the policy making strategic level.
Thank you. I would agree with Erica. For the most part, I wanted to be involved with the kids and the students, and so I started my involvement really at the elementary school level with Erica. I was the one dad in the room for many of the committee meetings and went on all the way through. And so I think that the reality is that you, like I said, you can intersect with yourself on the policy side as well as the personal side with the students. I think that the other elements of this are there are board level committees that are involved. So for example, I'm part of the Legislative Action Committee. We try to help influence legislation at the state level. We meet with our representatives. We talk to them about different policy things. We try to bring voices from the school district administration to the legislators. We listen to feedback. They love student testimony. They love student feedback. There's an English language learner or multi-language learner bill that's going through for funding. That there are numerous students who testified in front of government committees, and those voices are way more powerful than you can ever imagine. Those voices are. They carry much more weight than it does from the fact of a school board member or whatnot. Hearing the actual people impacted by the policies and legislation will have way more impact. So if you ever want to get involved with that piece of it, please feel free to reach out related to that. There are different things within the website where we can kind of interact in emails and those types of things. I mentioned speaking at the board meetings, emailing the board. We do go through every email and respond to each one of those as well. We have a voicemail system that you can leave voicemails, and the liaison role that Shamarka had talked about earlier. I think there's also opportunities for, if you have any ideas about different ways to interact with the board, we are more than open to that. That'd be a great topic in terms of, if there was something you wanted to come speak to the board or address the board, and you said that this is a better way to address or to reach out to our families and whatnot. That's great. Or we need to know more about transportation services or Edina Give and Go or those types of things. I think that some of those things are all areas that we are listening to. So anything you choose to, or any way you choose to interact, we are happy to do it. For the most part, we're community representatives for you, and so we like to listen and whatnot.
So I think that sometimes our society tends to focus on the negative, and so I wanted to make sure that we spent some time celebrating some of the positive things. And I know Shamarka already stole some of my thunder, but that's okay. He mentioned the Somali Student Association, which I didn't realize you guys organized. They came and presented at our, we had a really big, important meeting, and it was board members, lots of administrators. They were all blown away by the students that came and presented. What these students are doing and the impact that they're having. Everyone was so impressed that they're coming to actually present at one of our board meetings so the entire Edina community can see the impact that they're having in our district, and it will be recorded for everybody. I don't know if it's going to be May, it might be June, but I loved the examples of the students reading to the elementary school students. I think that is so important to share the different cultures and do it directly within our school day. I think I was just blown away by what you guys are doing. I'm so impressed. So I can't take credit for this, even though this is in my presentation, even though I'm trying to right now. It's actually you guys. So I was just at a, are one of you guys up here?
It's me.
Hey! Woo! That is awesome. I was gonna say, just at school last week, celebrating a bunch of seniors that are going on to 4-year institutions, and they are such impressive young men and women, and it did bring a tear to my eye, but one of our seniors won a scholarship that covers full tuition for all 4 years at the University of St. Thomas. The one young lady that was mentioned earlier is getting a full scholarship to Boston University. But we had so many students that deserve to be celebrated and have accolades for, and many of the students are getting full rides. I think do you remember what the teacher said? I think we had around $1 million of scholarships represented in that room that day, and a vast majority of them were Somali students, and it was it was an amazing day for me. I wanted to speak about diversification of our workforce. I mentioned this in our strategic plan. This is something that we are actively working on. We are making slow but steady progress. We've hired 60 additional staff of color within last year. We have a very large workforce, so I'm an honest, straightforward person. That's a very small percentage of our workforce, but it's a concerted effort. We have partnerships with the University of Minnesota Direct Track program, University of Minnesota Teacher Scholars of Color program, and Teach Minnesota to hire more teachers of color. We're not going to diversify our workforce without a deliberate direct effort, which is something that we are working on right now. We've been able to diversify our administrative team quite a bit, but I think it's said quite often that it benefits our students of color to have a teacher or other people in the building, and I know that it does. It benefits all of our students. Every single student, it benefits to have teachers of color. We all learn better when we learn from multiple perspectives. And so I think that's such an important message to get across to the Edina community, that diversifying our workforce, we're not doing it just for our students of color, we're doing it for all of our students because it benefits all. That is all we have, but
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I truly am excited to be here. I can't possibly think of a better topic for our community than learning how to engage with our school system to uplift our very own treasures, our future. Our hopes and our dreams are all with you. First of all, before I even say anything, before I came here, I opened up my drawer. I was thinking, what kind of hijab should I wear? So I was thinking of wearing this yellow hijab, and I said, oh no, I feel pink today. So I took out the pink hijab. When I came in here, I saw a young person who also opened her drawer and decided to wear a pink hijab. Right? And I want to recognize when we say we want to have somebody who looks like me, somebody who can relate to me, somebody who represents my values. It's right here. Right? Kali, how are you? Come here. Come here, my twin. See, my twin? All right, so, we've had a lot of great speakers. When Sharmaki called me and he said, Farhia, can you talk about this? I'm a public health practitioner. And I said, maybe this is a great talk for somebody who actually does this for a living. He said, no, Farhia, you have had children in the school system. You have raised 3 children in Minneapolis Public School. You know the issues we are talking about. You've been an active parent in PTA. Maybe you have a thing or two to contribute. So I said, okay, shall I do an academic presentation? Or shall I do a presentation that speaks to your heart from my heart? I am a mom, and I'm going to take out my academic credentials, and I want to speak to you as a Hoyo. I am a Hoyo. And not only am I a Hoyo, I am an invested Hoyo. And I've been in America for 30 years. Out of that, I have spent significant amount of that time in trying to understand our systems and our processes and what it takes to have an inclusive policies and practices. That way we can all lift ourselves. So here I am. So I've decided to just very briefly give, I walked away from the PowerPoint slide, and I'm just excited, especially by the many presenters. I would like to give accolades to our guests, the school board, that has decided to spend this Sunday afternoon sort of with their families and friends on a beautiful Minnesota day after a very crazy winter to be with us here. You know, we appreciate you. I want you to know that. And also Sharmaki. And we've talked a lot with Sharmaki about our community and how we can engage them and how we cannot be on the sideline and how we have to roll up our fist and get into the, you know, what we call inside the bull ring and grab the bull by its horn and grapple with it and fight it and put it to the ground, right? He said 5 minutes. You're going to wrestle me to the ground to get me out of here. But anyway, I will try. So 2009, this is what, 14 years ago, I was asked, when I finished my master's in 2006, so a few years after that, I was asked by University of Minnesota Extension that does parental engagement to do a project on parental school success. And in that project, I had the privilege of conducting focus group studies with Minneapolis parents to understand what is the conceptual framework of our community in understanding how they engage community. At that time, there's a lot of findings we had, but the one that has stuck with me over the years is a parent. This is what she said. She said, I have been an engaged parent. My children, I've taken, my children ever since they were 3 years old. I've taken them to preschool. I took them to, Head Start. After the preschool, I make sure every single day they sleep early, they have their meals, they are warm, they are dressed appropriately, they show up at school on time, I make sure they have their breakfast, I walk them to the school bus, I make sure they're safe. And then, when I go to the school and I sit down with the teacher during parents-teachers conference, the teachers tell me your student is behind. And I'm thinking, and this is what she's telling us, right? And I'm thinking, the audacity she has to tell me that she's not doing her job, and that was a bling, an eye opener for me, because the parent feels that she has done everything she can in her capacity to propel her student to her highest, potential. But when she goes to the school, she's hearing a different narrative. Your child is not reading at the grade appropriate level. And she's asking, why are you telling me this? Why aren't you not teaching the child? And it dawned on me, and one of the findings that we wrote is we have parents, this is 14 years ago, mind you, that are engaging their children in a system that is not within their understanding, right? Because in Africa, the teacher does everything. The disciplining, making sure they do their homework, the checking, no portals or no follow-up and all those flyers and phone calls, and that's not the world that she grew up in and her understanding. So there was a complete disconnect. Now let me fast forward 14 years later. I have, with my children, my 3 children going to Washburn High School, and being engaged with the Somali parents and all that, we were having a lot of challenges and problems. And then I decided, why don't I just go to the students and ask them what's going on? So I asked the principal, can I come and talk to the Somali students? And she said, absolutely, what do you want? I said, okay, during the lunch break, why don't we organize something? Very quick data collection. And she said, sure. So she created 2 days. She told me, come on this day and that day. There's a first lunch and second lunch. And I will do pizza with the principal. And for Somali students, lunch. So she came, the principal came, she had pizza, and all the Somali students came in. So I asked them just 4 questions. I had two big Post-it, and I gave them Post-it notes. Mind you, it's just 20, 30 minutes, right? And I asked them 4 questions. I said, what is happening in your school that is helping you become successful in your school? What is happening at home that is helping you become successful in your school? And then what is happening at home that is derailing your school success? And then similarly, what is happening in school that is promoting your school success, and what is happening? The findings from the students, when I looked at it, and mind you, this is just a snapshot, right? It gives you directional data. It's not concretely, it hasn't gone through the rigorous scientific analysis, so we can't possibly, for instance, I can't publish this information. But it does tell us something. And 4 themes came out of that. The first and foremost one, there was a complete consensus amongst the student that the parents are actually engaged in their success. How are they engaged? The parents constantly look at the portal. The parents ask them about their homework. The parents talk to them about the importance of school. So these dialogues are actually happening in our school system. This is a shift from where we were 14 years ago. So things are improving in a good direction. All right, so that's working well for you. So what about school? And they talked about how the media works with the school. They like the media, the career center. They liked the Chromebooks that they were given. They liked a few things. All right. So what's derailing you? So at home, they mentioned that there's a lot of distraction, and they were very candid. They said there's a lot of electronics. We have a lot of free time. The young girls talked about a lot of babysitting that they do. There's chores, and then they even talked about misinformed parents and how they keep enrolling in easy classes. That way they don't get challenged and they get away with that. All right. What about the other challenges at school? They talked about experiencing discrimination, which I have to say, this was 2019. That there has been concerted effort, there have been efforts with the systems to work through this, especially since the social justice demonstration, George Floyd. So there have been some work. And then they talked a lot about drugs and vaping and the incredible amount of pressure from their peers to this. This is how we're falling in between the cracks. Excellent, by the way, presentation by Dr. Habiba Ibrahim that covered a lot of the stuff that I was going to talk about. She mentioned this. Peer pressure. Lack of professional emotional support. They talked about internally there is lack of resilience and self-direction. They talked about lack of role model and inspiration, no mentoring. So those are issues that they mentioned. Now I want to talk about one, emotional support, and I will leave. Now this is the part that I want to really talk to your hearts, the moms and dads who are here, and the ones who are going to watch. One of the greatest challenge that we have is I can testify that we do such an awesome job in meeting the physical needs of our children. They dress well. They have the nicest shoes. We make sure that we have nice homes, beautiful furniture. This is my experience. Nice cars. We pick our kids up on time, drop them up on time. Those physical needs overwhelmingly, parents really hit those buttons. Where we struggle, and really struggle, and our children fall in between the cracks, is connecting with them emotionally, nurturing them emotionally and spiritually, And this is something that we are all trying to figure out, including myself, right out here. All right, well, thank you very much. Let me finish by saying, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with his infinite compassion, Ar-Rahman, with his infinite mercy, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, with his Allah who is his infinite help, Allah is Al-Ma'in. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with his infinite love, he is Al-Wadud. We ask him to help us, to teach us how to completely, totally, absolutely rely on him, so that we can all become people who are dependent and totally reliant on Allah. And I will finish by saying, regardless of what we're going through, we've been empowered. Wallahi, we've been empowered by the Quran. Yeah? Allah says in the Quran, the verse, my favorite verse, that carries me, that holds me up, that gives me inspiration, gives me hope, regardless of whatever crisis or challenge that we're going with. And our youth, this Ramadan, every masjid did incredible. I don't know if you've noticed in the Al Tarawih, the theme was youth. I don't know if that was the case, but the theme really was overemphasis of our youth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, and بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي, when my servant, when Allah calls you servant عِبَادِي, Allah, you've been honored. You've been honored. Right? When he says, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي, my servant, telling the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, when they ask you about me, what do you say? فَإِنِّي, Father is immediate. فَإِنِّي, I am, right now, in this room. Qareeb, close. Allah is very close to us. You have to always remember that. And remember His presence, right? فَإِنِّي أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةِ الدَّاعِ. أُجِيبُ, I respond. دَعْوَةِ, they call a da'i when he calls. Here we are, we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we are calling on Him. But if Allah says, what do you need to do? Two things you need to do. فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي, respond to me. Respond to me, submit to me. Submit to my will. وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي, and believe in me, and believe in my quwwah, power, that He has what it takes to make your visions a reality, especially for our youth. Why? فَعَلَّكُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ, so that He might be rightly guided. So let's remember, let's not never feel defeated. There's a lot of hope. We can make this happen, and you will lift us up when you're old and old aging. And let's pray not just for our children in Edina, let's pray for our children in Minnesota, our global youth, in the world as a whole, right? All right. سبحان الله وبحمدك اللهم وبحمدك لا إله إلا الله استغفر الله وأتوب إليك.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you.
So anecdotally, what we're finding out is, when you look at students generally, the ones that seem to do really well and excel and are involved in a lot of leadership activity, in debating. I used to be in the debating club all over when I was in high school and all that. That are involved in all this are the ones who, surprisingly, have parents who don't speak some English. And over the years, they were interpreters for their parents, ever since they were little, right? For instance, the mother gets a letter from Comcast, she can't read and write, she will tell, and the child will call and say, okay, what's going on here, this $200, then they explain, this is old, this is not this time, and parents who constantly involve their children in this, what happens to those kids? They become systemically knowledgeable, they understand processes and things and insurance and things that maybe a lot of the parents who go to school who know this stuff, they just say, this school ka la akhriso. This school ka ma soo bixi kartaa. Wala ma soo bixi kartaa, and you don't worry them with the things. The ones, parents like us, helicopter parents, wax kasta ilmaha u sameynayaan, wax kasta, they're the kids who really follow. Again, ilmaha waalidiinta qaba, or who are the ones who are, who involve them in that level, out of necessity, apparently, if you look at those groups of kids, they're the ones who have done really, really well. So that's